Hey guys, and welcome back to the Unfiltered Political Lens. Can America come together again? The road back to unity, purpose, and the American spirit. Welcome back to the Unfiltered Political Lens. Tonight I want to slow everything down for a few minutes, and I want to talk about something bigger than politics, bigger than party lines, and bigger than the nonstop noise we hear every day. I want to talk about America, where we've been, where we are now, and what changed along the way, and whether it's possible for this country to find its footing again and come back together. This conversation isn't about blaming one side or defending the other. It's not about left versus right, Democrat versus Republican, or red versus blue. It's about the deeper feeling many Americans share, regardless of politics. The sense that something important has been lost in this country, and the growing desire to figure out how we rebuild it together. Because for millions of people across the country, there's a question sitting quietly in the background of everyday life. What happened to America, and can we find our way back? There's a feeling many people carry deep inside when they look around the country today. It's hard to describe sometimes, but it feels like something shifted. Something changed in America over time, not overnight, and not because of one president or one election. Gradually across generations, and many people feel we have become more divided, more disconnected, and more uncertain about who we are as a people. We're more connected through technology than any generation before us, yet in many ways we feel further apart than ever. Families feel fractured, communities feel weaker, politics feels angrier, and trust feels lower, and the national spirit that once brought people together can feel harder to find. When many Americans look back before the 1960s, they often think of a country that felt different, a country that felt more rooted and more vibrant, more optimistic, and more connected through family, faith, work, neighborhood, and shared identity. The communities felt stronger as well because people were physically present in each other's lives. Neighbors knew each other by name. Families ate dinner together regularly, and the children spent their evenings outdoors instead of online. Main streets were busy, churches were packed, and local organizations were active. Civic clubs were thriving, and everyday life felt centered around real relationships. There was also a strong belief in the future. America came out of the Great Depression and World War II with extraordinary resilience. People had endured hardship, sacrifice, and rationing, uncertainty, and loss, and because of that, they deeply valued rebuilding. The post-war generation believed in work, family, sacrifice, duty, and the idea that tomorrow could be better than today. And that belief gave the country energy. The factories were running, and our small businesses were growing. Home ownership had expanded, and the communities developed. Workers believed their labor meant something. Workers believed their labor meant something, and the families believed their children would have more opportunity than they had. There was momentum. That doesn't mean pre-1960s America was perfect at all. It wasn't. The country had serious inequalities and racial injustice. It had economic disparities and many voices that were not equally heard or represented. And those truths matter and should never be ignored. But alongside those imperfections, there was still a broad shared cultural identity, a feeling that despite our differences, Americans were participating in the same national story. There was a stronger sense of belonging. Then the 1960s arrived, and America entered one of the most transformative periods in its history. The Civil Rights Movement pushed the nation toward long overdue progress and demanded that America live closer to its founding promise. That moment changed the country forever, and it remains one of the most important moral turning points in American history. At the same time, the Vietnam War deeply divided public opinion and weakened the trust in leadership. Americans watched violence and conflict unfold in their living rooms, television screens, in ways previous generations never had. The confidence in institutions began to crack. Then came a larger cultural revolution. Music changed, the media changed, and the family structures changed. Education changed, and religion changed, and sexual norms changed. Political activism changed, and traditional authority was questioned everywhere. For some Americans, this represented freedom and social progress. For others, it felt like familiar cultural anchors were collapsing. The pace of change became enormous, and the country entered a new era that felt dramatically different from what came before. In the decades after that, change only accelerated and globalization reshaped the economy. Manufacturers declined, and in many parts of the country, small towns that once felt economically secure lost jobs, industries, and population. Entire communities changed. Then the digital revolution arrived and transformed the human behavior itself. The internet changed communication, and smartphones changed attention. Social media changed politics, journalism, relationships, and how we see one another. Today, we consume information differently, communicate differently, and often live in completely separate political realities. Americans may live in the same town or on the same street, yet see the world through entirely different lenses. We watch different news, we follow different voices, and we trust different sources. We hear different versions of reality, and increasingly politics becomes identity. People stop seeing one another as fellow citizens, and they began seeing one another as opponents, I should say, at first. And that's a dangerous place for any country. But even with all that, I still believe something important remains true. Americans still have more in common than what divides them. Most people want safety for their families, and most people want affordable housing. Most people want stable jobs and meaningful work. Most people want good schools. Most people want stronger communities. And they want freedom, dignity, opportunity, and the ability to build a future they feel proud of. Most people want to feel heard, and most people want to belong, and most people just want to hope. These are not left-wing or right-wing values. These are human values. More importantly, American values. So the question becomes, how do we move forward from here? The answer is not going backwards exactly as things once were. History can teach us, but it cannot be recreated. America in 2026 is not America in the 1950s, and it's never will be again. That doesn't mean we can't reclaim the strongest values that made earlier generations feel grounded and connected. We can rebuild community, and we can rebuild our trust with one another. We can rebuild local relationships, and we can bring back meaningful conversation. We can support families more intentionally. We can invest in neighborhoods again, and we can restore dignity to work. We can rebuild civic life, and we can create stronger schools and stronger communities and stronger institutions and our local cultures. We can choose responsibility, and we can choose accountability, and we can also choose belonging, and we can also choose to listen to one another again. Not listening simply to reply, and not listening only to defend our own side, but listening to understand why another American sees the world the way they do. That doesn't require agreement, and it doesn't mean abandoning your beliefs either. It simply means remembering that disagreement does not have to become hatred. Now, the left and the right will never agree on everything. They never have. And that's not the goal. The goal is not perfect agreement. The goal is shared purpose, despite the disagreement. Go to remember what we are citizens of the same country before we are members of opposing political teams. It is to stop treating every difference like a war. The goal is rebuilding the trust where trust has been broken. The goal is conversation where conversation has disappeared. The goal is country over contempt. America has always been strongest when it found ways to unite around shared purpose, even in moments of disagreement. We've done it before through war, economic depression, civil unrest, and national tragedy. Rebuilding and reinvention. Our history has never been easy, but our resilience has always been part of the American story. And maybe that's what this moment requires now. Resilience. Not only resilience, but humility and perspective, patience, courage, and hope. Because hope still matters. Hope is what tells a country not to give up on itself. Hope is what keeps families moving forward. Hope is what keeps communities rebuilding after hardship. Hope is what keeps people believing tomorrow can still be better than today. America doesn't need to become exactly what it once was. America needs to remember what made it strong. Community, purpose, responsibility, family, hard work, sacrifice, resilience, freedom, belonging, and the belief that despite our differences, we are still part of something bigger than ourselves. The future of America won't be decided only by politicians in Washington. It won't be decided only through elections or cable news or social media arguments. It will be shaped by ordinary Americans in homes, neighborhoods, schools and churches, workplaces, communities, and conversations between people who choose not to give up on one another. That's where rebuilding begins, and that's where unity begins. So can America come together again? I believe it can. Not because our differences disappear, and not because politics suddenly becomes peaceful, and not because one side wins while the other loses, but because beneath all the noise, beneath the arguments, beneath the headlines and division, there is still a country worth fighting for together. America is not just politics. America is people. It is memory. It is family. It is sacrifice. It is struggle. And it is resilience. And it is the constant ability to rebuild. If we can remember who we are beneath the division, and if we can choose dialogue over hatred, our communities over isolation, and courage over cynicism, and hope over fear, then the American story is far from finished. Our best days do not have to be behind us. The next chapter is still unwritten, and it belongs to all of us. Thank you for listening. This is the Unfiltered Political Lens, and the conversation continues. Peace.